board meetings. We'll talk about that for a little bit. If we have any conversation about the VSBA resolutions, we have time for that tonight. Superintendent report on this last one, no tears. The committee reports from the board, minute approval, and any other business. Anybody have anything to change, modify? Okay. If we can start with Katie.
Sure. All right. Forgive me, everyone, if I mispronounce your last name. We will start with Steve Diglio.
I don't think it's going to be here.
Ethan Mauer. I thought
He was. Here.
and also Gail Conley. Edie Granning.
I am here.
Okay. Ethan's here. Sandra Limoges.
Here.
Stuart Morgo.
Was.
Say it.
Morjo.
Morjo. Susan Lillick. Kyle Magida. Magida. Okay. Tara Arneson. Allison Conan.
Don't think it's like here.
Okay. Heather Chadwick. Here. Katie Nelson. Here. James Granzow. Kevin Campbell.
Not going to be here.
Lisa Pollock.
He's here.
Steve is here.
Great. And okay, and Susan. Here's the good part. I'm not keeping track of who's saying here. We're not.
That's
So I'll watch the thing. And then that is everyone. Eli and Abby are not here.
So we double scheduled with the MMU honors night. They're both there.
As our parent, I think so.
There's some of the workers. Community comments. So community comments are limited to no more than 5 minutes per person. The board requests that participants clearly state their name, place of residence, and topic of comment. The board will take no action on items raised during community comments, and dialogue exchanges will be for clarification. So are there any community comments? Oh my bad, see a lot of people. Yes. You can come join us at the table if you want. You can, our chairs are child size.
Hi, I'm Amanda Goosen. I live in Jericho. I have a fifth grader at Brownsburg Middle School, and I'm here representing Reconnect. I'm here also with Colleen Hopkin and Dr. Vanna, and we are a group of families from Jericho and Underhill who've been organizing for over a year to raise awareness around the issue of smartphones and social media for kids. And we are just here tonight to sort of officially introduce ourselves to the school board. We want to let you know that we have hosted 2 community forums, one at Brownsburg Middle School and one at Camels Hump Middle School. We're appreciative to several of the board members who've attended those. And we just want you to know that there's really a lot of interest and energy and parent support around this topic, and that we would love to build relationship with you and do whatever we can to support you, regardless of what happens with H480, the bill that's up at State House currently. We are just excited to think about less smartphones and social media for our kids. Any other things that I missed?
Can I get another 5 minutes, maybe?
Sure.
So I want to talk about 2 things. One is
Introduce yourself. And
Sure.
your companies.
So I'm Dr. George Vanna from Jericho, Vermont, and I have 2 second graders and 1 kindergartner here at JES. So I wanted to talk about 2 things. One is students' mental health, and then the second is Derby Line, Vermont. The first is about sort of smartphones and, many discussions I've had with probably many of you, putting the superintendent about what we can do about sort of student mental health here in the district, sort of prevention wise, and sort of jumping on what Amanda's mentioned. We see really pretty impressive benefits to removing smartphones from schools. I think pretty informal data around the state. There are a few different schools that have done this, but they've seen cyberbullying incidents basically cut from 20 a year down to 2 a year. That sort of course, has a lot of impact on children's mental health, students' mental health, and of course, how administrators and other people have to manage those things. So it's a really powerful intervention. It's very inexpensive compared to all the things that I was suggesting to Dr. Alberghini, and how we can sort of address some of those things. The second thing I wanted to talk about was Derby Line. So in Derby Line, Vermont, where I grew up, there's a store called Alberghini's. It was the store in Derby Line. And while it isn't around anymore, it is not forgotten. So I think about the same thing for the district when it comes to our superintendent, that he's helped guide the district through some really complicated years, and that he may be gone, but I suspect he will not be forgotten, just as Alberghini's and Derby Line. Very much. You made my day. Living on the line.
I'm Colleen Popkin. I have a student in 4th grade and in 2nd grade. And I'll just only add that we have found a lot of momentum among parents around this issue of delaying smartphone acquisition and also around keeping phones out of the schools. In both of my girls' classes, we have an active pledge in Wait Till 8th, which is groups of parents who commit to their peers to not get cell phones for their kids until 8th grade. And there are other classes, both at Richmond and in Underhill, who have reached that achievement as well. So we're really trying to come at this issue in multiple ways by really informing parents and trying to build up momentum with parents to also ease the path for the schools, hopefully for when you make that decision for us about smartphone use in the schools. So only to say we're here to help, and we're happy to connect with any of you who want to know more about what we're trying to do. And even for just your own kids. So thanks so much for listening.
So I know we don't engage on these, so I'm just going to say thank you for being here, and we will all see what happens next week with 480, and then we'll have a clearer path forward. So, sorry, I clicked away from my pod. Todd Rowling, principal here. It is also your last.
This is my last board meeting. So I'm sorry to not be there. Hi, everybody. The camera looks at the screen. That's funny. You have my principal's report there. Things are going well at Jericho. We've had some nice results from various assessments this year, with kindergartners really doing great in literacy, a cohort in math, in 3rd and 4th grade, just knocking it out of the park. And overall, just really good assessments. So we're moving in the right direction. I wanted to highlight a couple things as you look through. One is we're one of the 2 elementary schools that doesn't have a preschool in the building, which is fine. We've been working hard to ease that transition, and over the last few years, and so that's been a multi-pronged effort. We've really upped special educators, counselor, teachers going to observe We have 3 main feeder preschools, but we have another half dozen or more after that. So we get our students from a lot of different preschools, and getting to know them and easing that transition is tricky. So observations has been a piece. When I came on, we were doing an open house, kindergarten open house, right before school started, and we've kept that going with bus rides. That's the highlight for the kids, and that might be their first time on a bus. And but what we started a couple years ago that we're continuing, that parents rave about, is tours. So actually, on Wednesday night, we have tours for incoming K families, and everybody meets at the pavilion, and then we do small groups going through the school. I've got a bunch of different staff that do tours, act as tour guides, and then everybody that's waiting for a tour, they get a time to hang out on the playground. Kids are playing, parents are talking. We've got representatives from PI, our parent organization there. I'm there. Katie will be there this week, the new principal. So we really work hard to ease the transition. And then one new piece that we started this year is a FAQ for incoming families. And we solicited questions on, what have teachers asked? I asked the other principals in the other schools. And then our PI organization runs a Facebook group for each cohort of students. And so they get a lot of questions. So they shared those with me. And we have a nice document that we'll be able to share on Wednesday night in tours. And then we'll share a digital version of it with families too, as we get through the summer. But answers a lot of the nuts and bolts, answers some of the, eases the emotional. It's been great. So that was one thing I want to highlight. And then going all the way down to the community and family engagement, one of the things I'm most excited for new this past year is what we're calling community connections. So each class, we have 17 different classrooms right now, and each class once a month gets time with the librarian, Amy Tillman, and the enrichment teacher, Dave Bouchard. And each month they have a different theme and engaging with the community. This spring, we tapped trees around the campus and made 3 gallons of syrup, which, if you know anything about making syrup, that's a lot of sap. And we have VINs coming as they're learning about birds in this current unit. In the fall, working with the student council, we hosted a local heroes luncheon. So we just invited a lot of folks that really contribute to the community and brought them in and hosted a luncheon with our farm to school. So kids, grew and made a lot of the food, and then the student council served it. And it was just a great chance to bring in a variety of people. So local farmers and first responders and all kinds of folks. So it's been great. So I'm really excited for that program to continue. That's been really successful. And yeah, it's good stuff. What questions do you all have?
Questions for Todd? Not seeing any. Is there anything that you were working toward that you just didn't get to yet?
I think we're doing, no, I've been working real hard with Katie. Katie, the new principal, I want to make an easy transition for her too. So we've been meeting in person and online. She's come in and met with staff and seen the school a little bit. I'm feeling pretty good. We've one of the things I did work on that we're is always an issue is getting kids at school on time. So attendance has gone up a little bit, but every little bit counts. And then tardiness has gone down. That was it doesn't seem like it'd be a big issue, but it was a really big issue my first year. There was a lot of families that kind of strolled in when was convenient. And so we've worked really hard and we got a firm starting time at 7:50 and by far most of the kids are in now. It's dramatically different. It's nice. So everybody's there for the morning announcements and then the beginning of morning meeting, which is, a research-based way to start the day. So all our classes do it. So it's been great.
Yeah, question. as one of the parents who is sometimes coming in at, 7:46 or 7, I appreciate the firm boundaries. What are some of the key aspects of culture that you're trying to pass on to the new principal, and how is that transition going?
It's a really passionate, caring group. So I want to keep that going. One of the focuses I leaned into more this year, which I'm psyched because it's definitely one of my favorite places, but it's just building up more fun. And that's been nice. We brought in a play expert, not only teaching teachers how to play with the kids better, but it was also trying to get them all a little bit of community bonding between the teachers. So that was great. But then this community connections is really a lot of fun, and bringing in the community. A lot of our schools changed with COVID, whether it was bringing community members in or going out into the community. And so with this community connections, I think that's a big step. And then we also, as a district, created a field trip fund. So every teacher has a per student field trip fund. And then we've got our own busing. And so I'm just trying to get kids out more in the community, in the area. We had kids going as far as Little River State Park for tours and whatnot, as well as just going to local areas. I've been trying to build one of my areas. I was a forest biology major at UVM. And so the Jericho Research Forest is a 250-acre research forest right there in Jericho. So I've been trying to build a relationship, and Dave Bouchard, the enrichment teacher, has taken that on. So it'll go on without me, but working with college students and professors there to get kids out in the woods and learn a little more in-depth science on what's right there in the town. So I'm hoping that can grow to some of the other schools in the district too, because it's a great resource.
And can you just talk a little bit about the Spanish immersion program?
Sure. It's going very well. We actually the math folks cohort that I was talking about was the 3rd and 4th grade Spanish immersion math kiddos, and they were all proficient or something on their local assessments, which is just astounding in some ways. It's great. I mean, of course, that's what we're aiming for, but we don't always reach that. So that was really neat. We just had our 4th annual biliteracy attainment celebration. So this is a state recognition. And it's our 4th because we needed to get, even though we're in our 8th year of the program, we needed to get our first cohort all the way through for 4th grade. And then Richmond just had their first cohort get through there. So we did a joint celebration in our gym. We had to graduate from the library to the gym. But recognizing all the graduating or promoting 4th graders in being truly biliterate. Their Spanish is impressive. You get outsiders that come in, and they too are impressed with the level of Spanish that our kiddos know. So in that, the program is really, doing wonders. And then it's cute as part of the ceremony. Every child says why the Spanish immersion program is important to them. They see it in Spanish and in English. And so that's just cute on how they, can communicate more and how they want to travel, how they can help bring the world closer together by knowing multiple languages. So it's a very beautiful ceremony.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Todd. We really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. You all have a wonderful night, and thank you. You know where to find me for a few more weeks if you need anything. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Todd. Okay. So this might be one of our most important monitoring reports that we have. And it's one that we can always do better at. It's an evolution. Because the goal is that to make sure that students are successful
families feel welcome in our schools. And so that's an ongoing effort in a lot of different ways. One, technology changes, people's working remote or not remote, two working families, blended families. So it's a constant evaluation of what can we do better and different to make sure that our schools are inclusive and welcoming and working for all students. That's the goal. And that looks different for every student. And to make sure the families, there's a conduit and a place for them to be able to share their thoughts and their feelings and their hopes and dreams for students. So this is really the essence of this monitoring report. I probably spent, and this is like, not to overdo it, but I think it's important for you to know, I'm probably 3.5, 4 hours on this. So what I did, this was one of our policies that we really did a lot of revision to. Spent the most time on this, probably because it's one of the, they're all important, but this is like really important, in my opinion. And so I had to go through each different section and really look at that reasonable interpretation, how Mount Mansfield is doing with this, what it might look like in a concise way, and then really look at what evidence do we have to support that we're in compliance with this. So this is another policy too that we're never going to get perfect. We're always striving to get better and make progress towards these policies, these specific policies that I'm sharing with you tonight. So I think that's sort of important context for the policy itself. And Edie was looking at it today, and I had left some of the negative language in there, but I was able to go back and edit it out. So we tried to move away from fail to, or, and turn it into will do. And I think we were able to accomplish that. So thank you for doing that. And I want to just highlight, a few different things.
I just want to put that in context. So policy governance, as probably everybody here knows, sets the guardrails by saying the superintendent shall not fail to do, right? And so we changed that language, but in all of the little subheadings, it didn't always match. So sometimes it was positive and sometimes it was negative. And then if it was negative and we say shall not do it, we were not really making sense. So,
yep. So we try to change it to shall do this, will do that. So I just wanted to highlight a few sections because this is 6 pages long, so it's pretty in depth. But what I tried to do in the evidence section was show you places that connect to the policy. So around are there avenues for people to understand what are the discipline protocols are and the processes and what the expectations are, what do they need to be doing on the bus, and what the rights of parents are if a student is suspended, and the process that we need to follow, and then some of the recourses or the communication that families and parents and caregivers have as well. And then getting into our wellness policy, which is we looked at very closely, which is a lot of it to me is the essence of this particular policy governance policy, because it hits so many of them. What we're going to do, allergy-free schools, and what some of the wellness priorities are, nutrition, exercise, and all that is in our wellness policy. So that's pretty critical. Also, what happens if a student does violate our drug and alcohol policy? What do we do? And making sure that we're clear about that with families. Also, we've gotten, I would say, really good at our emergency protocols. So every school follows the template that I have in here, and it's an emergency response plan. So if something really bad happened, what would we do? We all have the same commands, pre-K to 12. We do option-based drills, at least 2 a year at every school. And that's just to prepare, if there is an emergency, that everybody knows what to do. And then we've gotten really good at that. A person you probably don't know who's also really important to this policy is Blake Leonard, who is assistant special ed director, and she's now does some work for us around policy compliance and just compliance in general. So she helps us with our harassment, hazing, and bullying investigations and reports, making sure that we have all the correct documents, making sure if people have a question that we can answer it, and that we have a threat assessment protocol. So if we're really worried about a student, for example, we every other week, and I'm sure this is probably Katie would corroborate this, maybe not, but that you have first, second, third graders that will say, I'm going to kill you. I mean, they do that. And what we do, or, I'm going to bring a gun in, I'm going to shoot somebody. They say that. And, probably, like I said, every other week, but what we do is we have a checklist and we say, okay, is what's going on with this student? We have a team that takes a look at it. Is there something that is off? How they're doing in school going well? Is their attendance bad? How old are they? Could they really do this? And then we communicate with the families, around this as well. Now, if we had really big concerns, we go to a whole nother level of assessment. And if we go through that, we're really concerned about that the student's going to hurt somebody. Then we go to another level where we have, an actual psychologist that does a risk assessment. And we do a couple of those every year, just to make sure that the students, are safe and getting what they need. So Blake has been really instrumental in this and really, really helped us. We're solid. When it comes to emergency response, responding to hazing, harassment, and bullying, we have our act together. And what that has done, what I've seen is, because we've gotten better at it, the incidents have gone down. Because the students know what to expect more, and they know that we're going to follow up on it, and that we don't, if there's a complaint and it's viable or even close, then we investigate. I share a lot of information about our handbook and the work that we do around student records. Protecting student information is critical, and staff for that. But student information and privacy is really incredibly important in a school district. And so we have a new student records policy that we've approved, I think this year, but it might have been at the end of last year. And revamped our procedures to make sure that this information is safe and parents have access if they need it, and what we do, what we share and what we don't share. We have confidentiality training for staff annually. We have administrative assistant training annually to go over this and how we are going to handle student records. We had a training our administrative retreat with an attorney that came through and just said, here's what you need to make sure you're paying attention to. And Blythe was there, she helped organize it. And so that there's a lot of follow through at the school. So we know it's getting done. And she's reviewed it. So there's double, triple checking because it is so important. Then Jeff shared some information about how we deal with electronic data. We did have a breach, PowerSchool breach, which they violated our student privacy agreement. We have a legal agreement with anybody who has access to student information, and they violated it. So one of the things I think the board down the road is going to have to think about is, do you want to get into it's called a mass class action suit and hold PowerSchool accountable? So that's something that I think is probably going to come to you, in the next couple of months as it gets organized. One of the things that we did after that whenever there's an incident, and this is really the biggest one that we've had, even though I want to share with you, exactly what happened too, because I think that's important. Even though I have gone over it in the context of this policy, we don't share it. They have no access to our data. Zero. So if they need anything, they have to go through Jeff. And really, they had limited access. But again, they violated our agreement. And so we took steps to make sure they don't have any access. So to put this in context, the only private information that may have been gotten access to was 2 staff members. But there was no other confidential information that was breached. So it was a pretty limited breach, but still they violated our student privacy agreement because there was a hole in their system, and they're supposed to know that about us now. We'll go over all of this, but ADA is really important. And I think if you walked around this building, you saw this building is accessible. What VSBA does, which is our insurance company, is they do inspections, usually every other year. They go through the buildings and they point out things like, you're not supposed to have those lights that hang around because they could be a fire hazard. So they tell us to cut that out. And they also look for potential issues, safety, when it comes to accessibility. So if they point something out, like this bathroom, isn't handicap accessible, we fix it. And that has been really helpful as well. Then we also have, a bunch of protocols. We have a policy for 504 and for ADA, and there's a grievance process that we have. We haven't had any complaints. I put 24 months. I don't remember a complaint in the last 10 years, but I want to make sure that I'm just saying what I know and what's not what I don't know. There might have been something we addressed, but definitely not in the last 24 months. Then our wellness policy, I go back to that because it talks about our schools and making sure that regardless of what your health condition is, you're able to access your education here. And not to get into weeds too much, and I know I don't, but I'm really proud of some of this stuff. Our transportation department is great, and we're able to accommodate students that need, have conditions that make it tough for them to get on a regular school bus. So we have 2 handicap buses, and we bought a hybrid, Ethan hybrid van that we bought, actually 3 hybrid vans, but one that is that has a lift. And so we're using that all the time. So when we go to a sporting event with students, field trips, we have a student that lives way up on a hill, wherever, then we can get them to school safely and make sure that they're in school and they don't have to be absent because of transportation. Then talking about ways that families can provide how we inform people what their rights are, and then into the next couple of the other policies, how people can communicate back to us. So we have information about every staff person and how to get a hold of them on our websites. We have a district-wide email address that people regularly use. So somebody will watch, they'll watch a video, they'll watch one of our board meetings, they'll have a question, they'll contact me, or it comes to me usually. And district happenings, people have a question, they go right to that and we're able to answer it. And that's been really, really helpful. And I think part of this is hard to find evidence on, but maybe the last section does, but it's just really being open and honest and welcoming, right? When a parent comes in and they have a really big problem, I try to give them as much time as they need. If they need an hour, I give them an hour. To listen to them, to work towards some sort of resolution, to hear them, and then think about how we can make things better. And then leave it with, here's what I'm going to do, and here's, some things you might want to do. And I think that's something that we've tried to do as much as we can across the district, but it's probably the most important thing, right? Because if you're accessible to people, and part of that is following up on your emails in a timely manner is critical. Returning every phone call, vital, then that gets around. And if somebody has a problem, then they will let you know. And I have parents that call me regularly and we talk through things, and it's sometimes they're not very happy, but I feel like almost always we end in a good place. And you got to follow through on the things you say you're going to do. And, so that's hard to find evidence of, but, I know that Edie would get a complaint. I know this for sure. If I wasn't returning phone calls or if I wasn't returning emails. And I think what I've
How
tried,
many I've got?
how many? Because I really tried to do it. So it's a priority. So I might be brushing my teeth and, I won't miss that. And also, just trying to help principals understand how important it is. Because there have been times when that has come up and I've had to deal with that and you need to follow up and make sure people understand how important that is. And then again, handling complaints effectively, efficiently, make sure people know what they can do and where they can go to get help. I really haven't, in the last at least 4 years, had somebody say, I didn't know where to go to get heard, or I didn't know what my rights were, or I didn't feel like I was able to share my thoughts. The most serious issues come to me. So if there's a big issue, whether it's in the special ed complaint or the Human Rights Commission, which we haven't had knock on wood, an OCR complaint or a human rights complaint in 4 years, that's a good sign too. Those all come to me, and we track those by department. So if I get them, I write them down. If it's really serious, I go to the person that needs to hear about it, and I have them take care of it. And it's usually mostly around special services. Somebody not feeling like they're getting what they want, and what we do is we share their parental rights. We're very open about it, because if you sometimes we do get administrative complaints, and we've had 2, I think, in the last 2 years, and that's not a bad thing, because sometimes you get stuck, and the Agency of Education needs to weigh in on some topic that is fuzzy. So then they do, and then we fix it, goes one way or the other. So it's not I don't ever look at it as a bad thing because you learn from it. And I think I'm on 7, so I'm going to stop.
Heather has a question.
I just have a quick question. You say you haven't had any of these complaints in 4 years. Would you say it coincided with fixing, making this communication better, or what was it that changed in the 4 years that people are now more aware?
It's probably longer. It might be. Well, that's a good question. I think we've gotten better at HHBs and a lot better, because that's where we were human rights or a lot of our OCRs. And we haven't had a ton of them even over the last 10 years.
OCR.
Office of Civil Rights. And so I think that really, we put a lot more effort into training, and we got a lot tighter on what we were doing, and we got a lot better. And so definitely that had a huge impact. I definitely think that is true. I think Lights would agree, and so would Rebecca. I know she would, because we talked about it. The other thing that we do, we have these operational meetings, usually monthly. And if there are serious issues, and that's usually our directors, and all of our directors, with the exception of transportation, including Eric and Colin. But if something big happens, we talk about it, and we say, okay, what could we do different? What worked, what didn't, and, do we need to do some additional training here or there? And that's how we process the big ones. And just so you have a little bit more context and information, most of the issues are solved at the building level. And it usually revolves around behavior. Or, again, special services where maybe somebody's needs aren't getting met and we need to relook at it. So probably 90% of the issues get solved there, which is the way we want it. And they don't get to necessarily myself or the directors, which is a good thing. That's really, really important. That's a sign of a healthy organization when things can get solved at the local level. Because that's where the biggest influence is for parents, which we've talked about a lot. That getting things, changed or done or better really happens mostly at the building level.
Are there other questions on the stuff? I know we have 3 more sections, and I want to have an opportunity to talk about it.
And I'll be quick on the next few.
Very small one of the ability to understand these policies. Has there been an audit or a contract signed or something with the people who do the website that it's accessibility compliant? I know there's some standard. I used to know all the details, but there's some standard procedures you have to follow for government and public websites, and I don't know.
Yes, we do. Yep. And Jeff is taking care of that, and he's really focused on it and attentive to it.
I was going to wait until you were done to mention this, but it occurred to me that this monitoring report is just so important and probably the most applicable to our families. And so our website isn't perfect, but if you do dig, you can find, you don't even have to dig for everything, but you can find all of these things. So I guess it's a comment and it's twofold. One is that I spent a little bit of time finding these things on our website and then looking at other districts. And I just really want to applaud the work that has been done because it is so transparent about what happens and then what, right? And I think there are a lot of schools that don't have that figured out. And when the problem appears, it's a quick scramble to see how to support our students and families. So I just think that's to be, commended. And then secondly, I wonder if we can make some of these things, like when you look through this, some of them are more, they're based on the updates or the most recent things that have happened in which schools. But if we could have a place where some of this lived more organized on the splash page or a parent resource, because there's one for the district and there's one on each school and the high school and all of the handbooks. It's hard to know quickly how to direct people, both from our perspective and for people looking on the website. So it's just part of that constant tally of website thought and making it more accessible.
Yeah, if you could ask me what's one thing that we do, could get better in this website. Really,
it's all there, which is amazing. It's really great.
Better organized.
Yeah,
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, totally. 100%. That's something that we have to really focus on because that's where people go, right? And it isn't, I know where everything is, but not everybody does, right? So, it's really making it as super concise, effective, and efficient as we can. So there's definitely some work that needs to be done on the website. I think I've shared that before. And I think I've shared it with John as well. That would be something I would focus on. And Blythe can really help with that too, I think, because she's made sure that we have all the stuff we need. And it's voluminous, right? So it's helping people know where to go. I think we can do a much better job of that. Any other questions?
I actually, I know I sent John a long, sorry.
No.
But, when we're talking about building accessibility and just, I know that, ADA compliant doesn't necessarily mean that the space is accessible. And so, I'm just curious how often we have to, modify buildings more than ADA accessible. 'Cause I know we've had that conversation
Yeah.
in the past. And,
Yeah, yep.
Those standards are just so old that
Yes.
it doesn't always meet everybody's.
True. All the time. Like we have people moving and we really focus on like the need of the student, right? Not necessarily the TDA regulations, but you know, we put ramps in where we need to, if we need to redo, do some renovation to a bathroom because we have a student moving to some location. We have FM systems in all our buildings almost, I think. I know many. And so when it really is based on, and when you have a student in a classroom or students, and we need to put a ramp to get out the back, we do. Or any changes that we need to make sure that it works for students. Camel's Hump, we have redone several spaces to meet the needs of students that are way above the ADA regulations. So that's what we should be doing. What do kids need to be in school and be successful? I guess I would just say that, before I get in the last two sections, we can always do better on two-way communication. We've got to keep focused on that. That's so important. And we could do better at that too, at finding ways to get better information from parents and caregivers and guardians who are really busy. So I think, if there's another thing that we just got to keep vigilant on, it's that, because that's who we're working for. Those are the people that, that we work for. And so we want the schools to work for them. And that's something we have to continually evaluate. And one of the things I would recommend, and I won't go through all, a bunch of the rest of it. I think one of the things you're going to want to do, or I would recommend, is another really big scale engagement where you collect a lot of information, you look at the ends and you say, do we need to make some changes? Mm-hmm. That was a very good experience. We learned a lot. It created change and the way we do things. And it's really simple. You just ask people, what are your hopes and dreams for schools? What is important to you? And then you find themes. And then, you revise your ends and you look for data to make sure you're doing it. So some of the information I have for you here is 7 years old, but still, it's still guiding us, which is not a bad thing. It's a really good work. And then the information that we got during COVID was very helpful. The things that were most important, it really is our district priorities. All of those were themes in the COVID feedback that we got, and what people really felt was important. And then, I added in the North End capacity study because that was a very big deal. And we took a lot of feedback and listened to people. And it was tough. I'm not going to lie. It's tough sometimes. But, it has had some positive results financially and for students. It certainly did not lower the quality of education. And then number 9, is another important one, I think, and I won't go through. We do a good job graduating students, and we do a really good job of, if you take a look at our assessment results and we've shared, sometimes you might be a third grader and not get it, but by the time you get to eighth grade, you pretty much do. And our state results get better instead of go down as kids get older. Generally, that's doesn't happen. Yeah, I'm just telling you there. I've looked at it. It's usually a lot of times the other way. So we're continually, taking a look at kids and them getting better and better. But our middle school results, both locally and state, are really, really good. Probably, they're some of the best in the state, if not the best, for this cohort that you see going through our two middle schools. So that's pretty impressive as well. We have a super high graduation rate. You're not going to get much better. But we don't hang on our laurels. I think one of the things that's really been impressive to me about the system and about Mount Mansfield Union High School is the drive to get better, to change when they need to change, to make things, more innovative or more accessible or more outreach. One of the things we did is we added a guidance counselor while other people were getting rid of them. And or some have ripped them or eliminated those positions. We did it because we recognized there was some mental health issues for students that weren't getting attention. So we added a guidance counselor. It's made a huge difference. And we've invited some private folks in under certain conditions to meet the needs of students. And that has been really helpful too. And advisory, proficiency. So, again, I highlight high school because they've really done some really good things over the last decade. And not just, saying, oh, I can't do this because it's new. Not that we can always get better. And we've had really good leadership there too. People that were driven to do, Jen Butzenjord, Mike Weston, over the last 20 years. That has really helped two people that are constantly trying to get better. And I think some of the results speak for themselves. One thing I really like to highlight, and you've heard me say it before, because I think this is phenomenal, and I'm not over exaggerating. Most high schools, kids only take the SAT if they're going to go to college. We have almost all our kids take it, almost all. And we do better than the state, like statistically better, and way better than our SAT results. I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but it's a pretty rigorous assessment, and our kids do really well, and they all take it. I mean, all of them. So that's a really good measure. Just academically, of students that are pretty prepared to go on and be successful, not just in college, but if they want to get a tech certificate or do an apprenticeship or go out and work. We're going to the military. They're academically prepared to do that, or very, very hard percentage. And I cite some of the things in that we had our NEASC accreditation. And again, I don't put, you put as much stock in it as you think you need to. But
background on the ask.
so we do well. It's a lot of work. It's money, but we have every 10 years we do a reevaluation, and we have benchmarks. Colleges and universities look at this, and it's nice because it is a consortium. It's a group that have some common high standards for schools, and you have these outside people that come in who are pretty unbiased, or at least the ones I've met, and they tell you how you're doing, and then they would say these are some recommendations that we have, and here's what you're doing. And I got to meet with them. We just redid ours, and I got to meet the people that did the visit, and they were really, really impressed.
Was it this school year or last?
Was the beginning of this
This
week.
year.
Yep.
I don't know. They were all in a room. I was remote.
Yep.
I had no idea what policy governance was. It was really hard explaining what our board does
Right.
via policy governance. That was not any of their experience.
Yes. Yep. Same.
But they do go to a lot of schools in the state.
All over. Yeah.
So they. Right, because it's a group of practitioners that are also somehow involved in education, right, from around the state, and they come in and have, I get to go through it at the college level. But right, like they come in and they assess, like they're objective. But clearly they're like, oh, I've never heard of that. Tell me more. So it is interesting. The whole accreditation process is fascinating.
It really is. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Just listening to other people and have them tell you, give you their feedback. So that was, that's really helpful, and we've gone through that. And it feels like it's useful, and they use it to, as an impetus sometimes for change and to get better at what to focus on. So that's been really valuable. And then, I've shared some other things as well. Well, I guess I'd leave you on the P of professional learning plans. This is really remarkable too. I was surprised at this. So, and it says a lot about the high school, and it says a lot about the district. Mike told me they had 88% of families that came in and did those PLC meetings with their advisors. That's unbelievable. And I talked to one teacher, 100%, all their advisors, parents, guardians, caregivers come in, and they talked about how the student is doing, what their hopes and dreams are, goals are, and how they can get there. And reinforcing that you don't need to know everything when you're 17 and 18 years old. It'll come to you. But what do you want to do that's safe, healthy, productive? So I just thought, I didn't put that in here, but I kind of allude to it in one of the bullets, but I thought that was remarkable. I was very surprised. That is not from at all, in helping, superintendents.
Questions for John or discussion on the policy itself? So this is our opportunity to dig in to what's happening in the district, what how things are set up.
I have a couple of quick things. Number 8 looks like, this is just a little thing, but it looks like the language didn't get fully changed on the, it still says, but make decisions without seeking and considering input. So I think we just want to change that.
My version says
Without making.
Yes.
oh without.
Okay.
That,
Yeah, that's still in there in the policy online.
okay. So I mean, that one particularly, if we're trying to take the
Yeah, I
negative
agree.
language out, that
We should
that's
edit
confusing. Yeah.
I think it's a
Yeah.
technical change. We should
Yeah,
edit the
I
policy.
can do that if
Just so,
okay.
because otherwise
I
it
think it
sounds
is.
like
That
we're
was not
making
the
decisions
intent.
without seeking it.
Yep, I agree.
It's the opposite of what we're trying to say.
Just take the word
It should be,
seeking and
Yeah.
considering
that
their
the
input.
district shall,
Right.
seek.
Right. And then I had a quick question on the asthma friendly schools. I was just kind of interested in that, and it looks like Underhill Central is the only one that has that designation for our district. But do you know if do you happen to know if other schools, or you might not know this, but
No, I do,
if other schools are kind of like working towards that, or
yeah, they all are.
They're all
And I
kind
think Jericho actually got a, recognized.
okay,
The school did too.
okay.
By
Just
the,
curious. It's not on the thing, but they may not have caught it.
Yep. And our nurses meet, regularly, and they talk about, ways to make sure that we're asthma friendly and that we're meeting the needs of students. There's some significant allergies.
It's just becoming a bigger public health issue
Yep.
with, environment, wildfires, et cetera. So that's great.
But those are the only two that I know that got the award.
Yeah.
two related things on like the graduation rate and enrolling post-secondary and SATs and really all of those really things that are at a great level. Do we have a sense of the trend lines? Have we been at that level for a while? Have we been increasing to them or decreasing? I don't know if you have those, that information.
Well, SATs took, when we started having everybody do them, they went down a little, but not as much as we thought, literally.
Yeah.
So this is a much better representative sample of how kids are doing. So they've been about the same, not statistically significant change over the last, I can't remember when we did that. It wasn't that long ago. We started having everybody, maybe 4 years ago. But it hasn't been like for 20 years, 10 years. And our graduation rate has always been between, 92 and 98 is probably the highest I've seen.
I think it's longer ago than you think. I think both my kids did it with COVID.
Oh, we used to have people pay.
One of them paid and the other one didn't. Okay, I don't think.
I really don't remember when, but we've been doing it for a while, for sure.
To follow up on the SATs, is there a related program or something to push kids who wouldn't have taken it otherwise to leverage that into looking at opportunities they might not have otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, Mike and I, real honestly, and I think maybe I didn't share this with you or maybe some of you or everybody. They look at really the guidance folks and the advisors and staff say, hey, look, here's what you can do if you want to. What Mike told me, and I don't know if I told this to the whole board, but I think I told Julie, he was just really surprised that a lot of the students that weren't going to college come up again. He's like, above 1,000, which is pretty good. So yes, we have really tried to make what's nice is everybody takes it. So you can sit down with your guidance counselor, and sometimes your advisor and say, here's how you do it. Here's your options. What do you think? And also, for a lot of students, it's validation. And that's the feedback that I got from some other staff. And it's like, everybody, I can do this. I am good at that. And here's some of the things that I can do with that. And it could, from becoming an electrician, which, we have more students that are going into technical fields, and to get in person. So.
And they can always opt out, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You can opt out of taking the test. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We have people
I
that do.
want to recognize that there's a number of students that have test anxiety, right? And it's very prevalent when the VT caps come out, right? Like, I've heard of a number of middle schoolers that are just like, this doesn't make me feel good. This doesn't assess, like, the kids kind of go into overdrive and don't want to go in to take these standardized testing because it doesn't impact them. And I know SATs are slightly different. And I say this every year we talk about SATs. Like, colleges are becoming more and more test optional. Nobody is relying on as much as they used to because kids are being looked at really holistically, right? Like, what did you do for community service? Were you doing this? Were you doing that? And like looking at a kid's high school resume, which we do a great job of building with our PBGRs and the other things that our kids can get involved in. So I do sometimes get concerned with the weight of the SATs on kids because it's not as big of a deal anymore.
That's a good point. And we have about 10% of kids, a little more, sometimes 12, that don't take it. So if you don't want to take it, you don't have to. It is, and I totally agree with you. We should be looking at it differently. And for us, the way we're trying to use it is more around a quality indicator. How are we doing it? Not necessarily you're going to need this to do that, but how are we doing as a system? And it's one of the school districts have to pick. And it's something, you can use graduation rate, but you want to have to use something else. And we use SAT. Because what we also found is that we don't pay for it. If you're, living in poverty, or economically disadvantaged or just on the edge, you're not going to take that. As much as we try to scholarship, a lot of people don't access it. So it's a barrier to just sort of eliminate it. But I agree with Tara that it's becoming less important for higher ed, and we should be using it to look at how are we doing.
And that's why we pay for it. I feel like that's a good place to clarify that.
Yep, that's why we pay for it. So as a measure.
Steve?
Yeah, 1120 is impressive for an average. I think that is something to be proud of. Is there an actual preparatory course or anything, or is this just a reflection of the core academics?
Well, there's probably some, we don't offer preparatory.
That was the question.
Yeah, we don't.
Do we prep the kids for that?
No, that I can really honestly.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure. I'm like, are we
Yeah,
like?
that is a very good question. There are some students that their parents probably pay for it. But we don't prep them. I say this and I'm 7 minutes over, but we have a really good educational program. And things like having our learning center, that's packed all the time. Learning lab. I usually stop by there when I'm there just to see. It's full of kids getting help with things like chemistry, which can be hard, and in math 3. And then we also have these times during the day where you can go see the teacher. Everybody has time where I can go see Mr. Davis and get help with math. And that has really been really helped too, to be able to go to the person that you really need to talk to get help. But we always have to try to, we want to continually get better. And if you take your eye, off the ball or your foot off the gas, things can change.
I have a question, John. I'm just curious. The PLPs are done with the students' advisors.
Yes.
SAT scores are reviewed by guidance counselors with every student. Or how does that work?
I think so. I'm not positive of that, but I know it's something they use to say, here's what some of your options might be.
I'm curious about are the guidance counselors, interfacing with the advisors around particular students? Like, how's that communication occurring with guidance counselors going over SAT scores that they get about post-high school? That the PLPs are, during the high school. How does it all come together? Curious.
Good communication.
So there's a system in place to assure that the key folks are communicating so that
yes. And
every student is getting the support they need.
Yep, good coordination. Kristen Barker is the head of our guidance department, does an excellent job. And then the leadership team, they have a leadership group at the high school that meets regularly. And, it's about 16 people and they talk about that kind of stuff. How can we make sure that we're closing the loop and communicating better? But there is a good system to say, look, if I'm worried about Johnny Alberghini, then, I'm going to connect with the advisor. I might connect with the teacher, around a specific piece of the educational program and see what we need to do to help the student. So it's multi-layered and pretty effective. The one thing I wish we could be better at, because it's not all, rainbow and butterflies. We've really been challenged at getting feed, and we've tried, but failed. We haven't done it. It's really hard to get kids 4 years out of when they're 4 years out of high school to get feedback from them. We've tried it. we haven't done, it's really, really hard. That would be super duper good information. If we could get a pretty big sample, say, here's what I'm doing now, and here's what worked, and here's what didn't. The VSAC surveys are usually lag a year behind, but they give some good information. But it's optional, so you don't get everybody. But that's been helpful too. But that's one thing, if we could do better at that, find a better way to get that feedback, I think that would be really helpful.
Other questions, comments, thoughts? Can I get a motion to approve the monitoring report for 2.1 treatment of students and parent guardians? Thanks, Heather. Second. Thank you. Susan? Any more discussion on the policy? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Let's work on that one, John.
Thank you.
Board calendar update. So we have a draft of the calendar for next year. The dates are firm. That's it. Dates are firm, but you can start putting dates into your calendar. The leadership team is going to meet again later this month. We met with John and John to try to talk about what we should do. It took us some time to get to the dates and talk general policy things. So we're going to do more on how many reports, figuring out the training pieces. We talked about policy governance modules once a month. So we'll kind of get those put in here so folks can have more information on that. So stay tuned. You will get an email, I don't know, later this month, early next month with more information. But please get dates and times on your calendars. Tours are going to come late. Well, I guess tours are sort of in there now, but get that 6:30 time slot locked in, please. What we don't have is a summer retreat time in here or set up on the calendar. We tried to piggyback that to the leadership and just take a couple hours and join in with them. And we don't have dates on that to share with anyone yet. So I will send some kind of a important announcement when we have that, and hopefully the majority of us can join them for a couple of hours in August. Generally, it's the August, which week? Just so people know it as well.
Second week, typically it has been. So I don't know. John, do you have that date?
I'm pulling it up right now. Looks like the 13th and 14th of August is what is penciled in for.
All right, so it will be the 13th or the 14th of August, probably around the lunch hour. So if you're traveling that week, just give me a heads up. If one day is better than the other, give me a heads up. If I don't hear from you, I'm going to assume that either one is fine and figure 11 to 1 or 10 to noon or somewhere noon to 2, somewhere in that vicinity. And if you have strong feelings about any of that, let me know. Great. Questions or comments on this very primitive draft calendar? Okay, and once it's more set up, it is always a work in progress, but the dates are the current piece and we modify the agendas as we go. Just helps us to have a plan for what we're working toward with the fair group. So if you take a look at it and you see something missing or you see something that doesn't make sense, please reach out. All right, getting back on schedule. I think we're going to be even more on schedule or ahead of schedule after this one.
There's nothing wrong with that. One of the greatest gifts would be to, for my last meeting, to be
Oh, really?
Or how early? I like that.
Do that.
Don't jinx it.
I'm very positive. How
Yeah.
early is positive.
Yes,
Short,
exactly.
nothing wrong with short either.
Nothing wrong with short. Efficient, yeah.
VSBA resolutions. Anything, updates? I don't think we set a small group aside. I don't think we had anything. So we are passing. We are not passing on, putting a resolution together from our board. Do you have any updates from we'll have those in September, those resolutions from the resolution committee in September because meetings in October, so Gadelia explained it to me, I have paid attention. Because the resolutions committee of the VSBA meets in July to determine what moves forward and what doesn't, but it has to be voted on at the business meeting, which is held before the conference. So we may even have it for our August meeting. Maybe. I don't know. I just had through a day long today. Thank you. All right. So nothing from the board. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on what the VSBA and if we have any conversations on what they should be working for. Superintendent report. Any questions or comments for John? I noticed it was heavy on retirements.
Do we have time? Actually, no.
No, we actually have many fewer than that.
Mr. Weston did send us the boxes. To you, just like recently, just like an hour ago for the board reserved for the
Graduation. For
graduation.
squares.
Oh, squares. I'm like, I lost. Like, what kind of box?
Graduation reserved spaces.
Yeah.
So he did send us that.
Great.
We'll forward that.
Great. And by we, he means he will forward that to the board.
Yep, I'll do that. We're all set. And it just came. Right for this Monday.
Great. All right. Thank you. So questions, comments, anything?
I have a question. It's not in the report, but just how's the transition kind of going? Has that started? I'm assuming.
For me?
Yeah, well, you and John. I mean,
Yeah, we've been communicating, John. We, usually a little bit, some weekly. John has been meeting with folks at central office. He was there today. I ran into him on his way out, and Edie and I are meeting with John on Friday. And I'm going to give John my private email and my phone number. He can call me if he ever has a question. I'm always going to be, there to help. I haven't transitioned at all. I need to start doing that. But that'll come like July 1.
Yeah.
So I think it's going well. I mean that sincerely. It's going well.
Lines of communication are open. I think John has lists of lists and things. It's my best guess.
Yes, I have very many lists, and I think I still have quite a few things that I don't know that I don't know yet. But I would say the meetings have been going very well. John has been super supportive, as the whole team has been, and so I'm looking forward to being there on July 1.
Just want to mention to everyone that Abby is not here tonight. Our student who is a senior. She is graduating. She is getting an honors night at the school celebration, and she is getting a gift from the district for her service to the board. So great. Cougar here.
She's a really
add to
good
that.
person.
Yeah, please.
Because also Farmer Ligmuth is graduating. He's been on the community engagement committee for 2 years. And it's been great having his student input and perspective, and we really appreciate his service to the board as well.
He was on a field trip to the State House with so we had 4 teams. I think I probably mention this to everyone, but we have a student golfer who has a 4-time state champion for girls golf. The 2 Nordic teams who are 2-time state champions for boys and girls, and the dance team that are 10-time state champion in a row. And all of this is in a row in hip hop. I hope. Yes, and they were all at the State House, and I was walking with the farmer, and our Secretary of State came over, and I introduced them and said, "This is community engagement. This is a student who has been involved with me." And so it was like a lovely, because she's so much about community and student engagement and student education and doing all of that. So we got some accolades there. So great. Yeah. So yeah, it was like, yeah, everything just kind of fell into place. There was a fire alarm and everybody was outside, and it was so very sweet. And also, as we're looking at John's report, we haven't moved on to other business yet. John is retiring, and there have been some celebrations because it's been a long time. And I don't know if folks have noticed yet, but the kindness signs are going up all around the district. The one here is the walking path. And so if you have a moment, check it out by the corner of the parking lot. Walking path that is about half a mile around the school grounds. And it's Kindness Matters, I think, walking path, or kindness, I should look more closely. So but just take a moment when you walk into the high school, there's a big heart. It's kindness on the way in the carpet there. So there are just all kinds of different things. And so your legacy will be here, and we are incredibly grateful for leadership. So I don't know how many times I can thank you, but I will continue to try.
And I'll continue to thank you and everybody. I'm very grateful. Your character figured out just so many people. So been a good run.
Pretty darn good. There you go. Yeah, I don't want. Committee reports from the board, unless there's something else on the superintendent report. Okay, committee reports, finance facilities.
Because Heather actually went to the meeting that we had.
We met on
It was May 16th.
May 16th, and I.
Do you want me to come back to you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Community engagement. Can you do that one, Judy?
Yeah, mostly we, John Muldoon attended our meeting, and we had a conversation on how we can support his entry plan and the community engagement around that. We, that's it. We had a small update from the All Together Now project, and that's all that I see in my notes.
Discuss PTO.
Oh, yes, yeah, PTO, and then
So discussed how do we engage with the PTOs around the district to help us engage with the rest of the
yeah, yes, and I was
Just cataloging for jobs.
yeah, I was distracted by this. I saw on 6/17 from 4 to 7. The All Together Now project is having this slice of summer, which I thought was a really cool event at the Stone's Throw in Richmond, and so that's like a student celebration with PR games, pizza, and they're donating pizza to that.
Nice.
I think one of the things at the last couple of community engagement meetings is continued conversation about how do we engage the community and how can we leverage district happenings, et cetera. So that's really kind of big umbrella that will continue. And there's a really strong commitment to make that happen.
HR, this may not be John's last meeting because we may have to have some special meetings for negotiating 2 contracts. Ideally, we will settle them soon. So keep, an eye out for an email that says special meeting. I think we need 48 hours, 72 hours,
48
48
ideal.
for a special meeting.
But we have I believe we have a TA with sports that, which is public, and we're negotiating with teachers.
So we will definitely have a meeting. Right, so what we do is we wait for them to ratify it, and once they ratify it, then we each sign. And vote. So,
Great progress.
great progress. Right?
Okay, sorry, I'm ready now.
Okay.
Finances, so the Finance and Facilities Committee, we appointed Lisa Pollock as chair. We then reviewed our annual audit and our end of year estimate. And then approved our minutes. Oh, and the TAN, right? Talked about that TAN. Tax anticipatory note. Yeah. Read minutes. We don't have another meeting, so that's all.
And we're anticipating to be where?
We're anticipating to be a surplus. Oh, you have actual number. $748,669.
Thank you.
No deficit. You can make it.
Obviously, everything has to close out.
Yes, that's all. That's subject to that's the end of the year actually happening.
Great, thank you, everybody. Questions on any of that? I had a little bit of a. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the 19th of May? Thank you. Did you want a second? Sure. Thank you. So thanks to Sandra for that. Any conversation on the minutes? All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Derek abstaining, thank you. Okay, minutes are approved. Any other business? Okay. We have a couple of sports teams in the playoffs still tomorrow at the high school. Rain or shine, but not in thunderstorms. Lacrosse, boys lacrosse will be playing. Girls tennis will be here if it's dry, or will be at one of the edge locations if it's wet and has to be outdoors. And maybe Ultimate is still in it.
There's two in it now.
Yeah, they were practicing today, so that's what I assumed. Yeah.
So,
It might be at home also.
Yeah.
Yes, I think both games are at 4:30.
Yep.
cool. Can hit them both. Double header. Anybody who's interested, stand with your back to one field and spin. All right. Last call, other business. Again, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Last one. Can't believe it.
Yeah.
Really almost surreal.
You can still attend our meeting. Person or virtually.
Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Susan. All in favor, give me an eye and head on home. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Night, everybody. See you later.
Take care. Good job, John.
Thank you, and thank you for welcoming us last night.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah, thank them for me.
Yeah.
You're a wonderful family. You're blessed.
Appreciate it. Take care, everybody.
Bye.